Coming to the exercise program from the network programming chapter. So let's see what is the first exercise program here. Change the socket program socket1.py to prompt the user for the URL so it can read any web page. You can use split method with the forward slash as a delimiter to break the URL into its component parts so you can extract the hostname for the socket connect call. Add error checking using try and except to handle the condition where the user enters an improperly formatted or non-existence URL. So basically in this program they have asked to modify the solved example from the same chapter, that is socket1.py. So for that, first let's see what is socket1.py and what are the changes to be made in that according to this exercise program here. So this is the socket1.py which has been given as a solved program in the chapter. So in this program, as I already discussed, what we have done, we have seen a basic browser to be built by using the common methods for creating a socket and connecting and sending the request message to the server. So for doing that, what we have done here in the part of the command, we have taken a static URL here. So the URL stands here from this http to this romeo.txt. So this is a static value that we have taken in the program itself. So what changes to be made according to that exercise program is this URL needs to be read from the user. We need to prompt the input to be taken from the user, and once we take this, so we need to extract only this part which is the host name, and we need to extract it, and this value needs to be given as an input to the connect method implicitly, that is it has to be done dynamically. So let's see what changes can be done to the same program for doing the solving the first exercise program here. So the try and the except block has been used for this program. Why? Because in the question they have mentioned to check the existence of a correct URL or not. For that, the entire logic what has been used to extract the content from the server can be included in the try block. If something goes wrong with any of the statement within this try block, this except part will be executed. So we'll see what changes has been done. So in order to read something from the user, you always go for using the input, so which will be read in the form of a string. So once we provide the URL, we need to extract only the host part from that URL. So that can be done by splitting the entire URL with the forward slash. So if you know, if you remember, the split method will give the result in the form of a list with the contents splitted with the string with the forward slash as a delimiter. So if you want to check out what are the contents of that list, you can print it out, and once you print it out, just identify at which index position you will get the host name, so that you can extract with respect to that host that index value which is the host name. So first we'll execute this part of the program to check out how does it behaves. So once you execute, it is going to read the URL. So already have copied the URL to be given as an input here. So I already have copied the URL to be given as an input. So once I provide this URL as an input, you can see what the output you are getting. The first thing is it is going to split the URL with the forward slash as a delimiter here. So it results into a list. You can see what are the contents of the list is the first HTTP followed by a blank content here because we have the two forward slashes here, and followed by the next content that is splitted with the forward slash is this your host name, followed by the name of the file here. So you can observe within this list the index value for the host name is 0 being a HTTP, 1 being the blank, and 2 being the host name here. So that is what has been extracted in the program here. Index value with the 2 gives you the host name which has been stored in a variable host. So if you want, you can print it out and check out. So you got the host name that has been extracted with the index value 2 here. So the next part of the program here is constructing a socket, creating a socket object, which is exactly the same way how we did with the earlier examples. Next is executing the connect command in order to connect with the server. So you can see instead of providing this static host name here, So the one which you have dynamically extracted with the split and the extracting with a specific index value, the same variable what has been used here is passed as a parameter here along with the AT as a port name. So follow to that, we need to construct a command which needs to be sent, since we are not taking a static URL here. So we have read the URL as a string, so always we can go for concatenating this string. So you can see get the string to be done plus concatenating the URL read from the user plus again concatenating the rest of the string that is required for constructing a command. So if you want, you can print it out whether you have correctly constructed the URL or not. So the next thing is, before sending that command or the request to the server, it has to be encoded. So then the send command needs to be executed with the command that has been constructed, and the rest of the logic for retrieving the data from the server will remain same. So if you observe the output, you can see what all you got here. So till here is this part is the way how you have constructed the request that has to be sent to the server. So the next part is the data that you are receiving from this server. So if you remember, already I explained all these things with the previous examples that we have discussed in the chapter. The first part of the response is the header, and with few blank followed by the few blank lines and followed by the actual content that has to be retrieved here. So this is the solution for the first exercise program. So coming to the second exercise program from this chapter, what we need to do in this program is change your socket program so that it counts the number of characters it has received and stops displaying any text after it has shown 3000 characters. The program should retrieve the entire document and count the total number of characters and display the count of the number of characters at the end of the document. So what has to be done here is, we need to write a web browser program where we need to create a browser to read only the 3000 characters from the file, and then it has to retrieve the entire content and it has to display the total number of characters at the end of the document that has been read. So we'll see what has been done as a part of a solution here. So the first few lines will remain same as we did it in the first exercise solution, that is reading a URL from the user, extracting the host name from the URL, and creating a socket, connecting with the host that you have retrieved with the index value 2, and constructing the command and encoding that command and sending the request here. So in order to receive the data from the server, we have used the another variable name as a received, which is a bytes literal here. So in order to read the data, we are going to use the infinite loop here, and how it needs to be done is with the receive method. So if you remember the receive method, you are going to specify the number of bytes that you want to read at one iteration. In this logic, we have used it as a 512 bytes. So the rest of the logic remains the same here, that is if the length of the data is less than 1, that is if no data is sent by the server, you are going to break it. In the other cases, the variable that you have used to store the data, you are going to concatenate all the data to this variable here. So at the end, you need to decode all the data that you have received from the server, and while printing the received data, you need to use a splitting operation here. Why? Because in the question they have mentioned that you need to display the first 3000 characters that has been read here. So how you can do it, print, so where you have stored the received data from the server in the variable name as a received, and with the slicing as the plus part of the slicing remains absent. Why? Because you want to retrieve it from the first position, that is 0, till the 3000 characters, and then you are going to print how many data you have received. Why? Because you cannot say that you have received the all the 3000 data. Why? Because your what the file what you are extracting the from the server may contain the data less than the 3000 here. Okay, so finally print the amount of the data, the number of the characters that you have received from this server, and then close the socket. So we'll see what happens if we run this program here. So I'll give the same URL here. So the previous few lines is going to appear as exactly the same how we did for the previous example here. The difference that you can identify here is the content here. So since we have used the first 3000 characters, this entire file consists only the this much of data, right from the header to the till here. It is a 536 characters here. So if you want to check out whether you are able to extract the less than this amount of data, you can change it here. Instead of 3000, simply I'll take it as a 500 here. So once again I have executed the file. So I'll give you the same URL here. So you can see here, though it is showing that it has received the 536 bytes, but the amount of data that has displayed here is less than what it has displayed earlier, because in the displaying content in the program, we have restricted that it has to display only the first 500 characters here. So you can see here in the output, as compared to the previous example where we have taken the first 3000 characters, wherein it fits all the contents from the file. Since we have restricted it only to the 500 characters, so you are able to get only the partial information from the file here, but it will show you the total number of the characters that has been received from the file, which remains same with the previous execution here. So these are the solution for the first two exercise programs. So the next solutions for the next exercise programs will be continued in the next video. Thank you.